Hello, women's hockey fans. Welcome to another edition of the Original 8 series, part of the Founding 4 podcast. I'm your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala. We today will hear from Kaleigh Fratkin. Fratty is a member of the Boston Pride for the last 3 seasons, but she also played with the Connecticut Whale in season 1, and she played with the New York Riveters, of course now the Metropolitan Riveters, in season 2. Kaleigh Fratkin has been with the league. She's one of the 5-timers, as I like to say, and I was able to speak with her just a few days after we learned that the Isabel Cup final between Fratty's Boston Pride and the Minnesota Whitecaps would be postponed indefinitely because of the coronavirus pandemic that unfortunately we still see ourselves facing as a country, as a world. So you'll hear Fratty and I talk a little bit about that, just some of the initial reactions of both of us to having sports stalled. But we also get into a lot of really great topics. Fratkin is really honest about her journey and all of the stops along the way and what made the situations ripe for her to relocate for each of the seasons that she did so. She talks openly about some of the challenges that the Connecticut Whale team had in season 1. She talks about being recruited by Chad Wiseman in season 2. And we talk a little bit about 3, 4, and 5, seasons 3, 4, and 5. You'll see that we open up with a reference to NWHL Open Ice, the Anya Packer episode. I, for one, am really excited for the potential for follow-up on that topic, but I'm going to let you hear Fratty tell the story there. Here is our 6th installment of the Original 8 series featuring Kaleigh Fratkin. All right, so I am on with Kaleigh Fratkin, one of our special guests for the series that we're doing, the Original 8. So Kaleigh has played in the NWHL all 5 seasons, and it seems like your most recent stop, and at least last I remember, likely your final stop in the NWHL, you're with the Boston Pride, and TBD on that Isabel Cup final.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, we are talking. We are in the, what is it? Soft lockdown. I think that's happening on the East Coast. So, of course, glad to hear you're doing all right.
Yeah, hanging in there. Getting a lot of quality bonding time with my dog, my boyfriend. Probably want to kill each other at this rate. We're only like 2 days in, so we'll see how the rest pans out.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Just remind everyone we got to keep you healthy for that final. Priorities.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, priorities. But I was teasing you a little bit as we were coming on air. Anya Packer now was on Open Ice. Obviously, you two go way back. And I said I want to clear the air, set the record straight on something that was mentioned on Open Ice last night. Now, I have for years, Kaleigh, been just admiring and giving propos to Anya for her wardrobe. And I understand that she's been taking credit for your good eye. What's up with that?
Yeah, she takes credit for a lot, I would say, between our friendship and how her talk tracks and say, there's always a puppet behind the puppet master behind it all. So I'll take the credit there. No, she I've low-key been her stylist for multiple years now. So yes, I am the method and brains behind it all, I guess. I'll take credit for it.
Wow, amazing. I mean, especially like coat game, just so strong. That's important in hockey. That's important.
It's very important. If you got to take a walk through my closet.
Oh, man.
Probably not a lot of people see, coming into the rink wearing, but if you ask anyone on the team, maybe I'd like to say I got a strong coat game.
All right, I love it when I start an interview and I already have an idea for the next interview. So we're gonna have to deep dive into the closet and the wardrobe. I'm so excited.
Sounds good.
Okay, but we're here for the original 8 series because you are one of 8 players that has been in the league and for all 5 seasons, I should say. And so what I've been doing is I'm trying to get to all 8 players. I think with you, with this interview today, I've got 2 more, so we're almost there, so close. But so I'm asking everyone similar questions. So the first is, when you hear that, and you've heard it, for this entire season for sure, but when you hear that there are 8 players that have been in the NWHL for all 5 seasons, I mean, what's your initial reaction to that?
It's awesome. I mean, this league, there's a ton of turnover every single year, just with the reality of the fact that it's the beginning of a women's professional of women's professional hockey in general. So the reality of being still in its infancy in year 5. There's turnover each year. Year 1, there's a ton of turnover for I would say most reasons, just because of salary and just the nature of it's ever changing each year. So it kind of amounts to a lot of turnover. So I think given all of that, the fact that a lot of rinks relocate and has to play into players where they work and some of these other stipulations. So I think given the fact that there's 8 people in general, I think speaks volumes to some of the things that the league has been doing as of recent to progress and change each year to get better. So it's pretty awesome to be a part of this group and play with and against these players over the course of the 5 years. So there's a mutual, I think, respect amongst all of those veteran players, and to kind of be a part of that group and talk to a lot of these players on and off the ice, and hopefully in many years from now we can look back and we could be those grizzled 8 veterans that were a part of founding this league and being a part of it for multiple years.
Yeah, for sure. And, as I made mention, your journey is unique to all of the players. Some have been on different teams, but you've been able to play on 3 different teams, so 3 different franchises. And I'm curious, we've talked about this throughout the years, but, you just mentioned how difficult it is because of the landscape of women's hockey. Unfortunately, I think you could also make that case for women's sports, but there's a lot that goes into signing a contract every year, and the NWHL has contracts that you go year to year. But for you, you were with the Connecticut Whale, the Riveters, and now with Boston. How did you and how were you able to make the decision each year to come back, even though, for at least 3 of those seasons, you've changed teams? And with Boston, if I remember correctly, your first season with Boston, you kind of came in the middle of the season. We weren't sure we were going to get Fratty back. But so just kind of walk through your specific journey when it comes to having to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's the nature of what was happening kind of in the league for, first year, ended up in Connecticut. It was really a place that kind of ended up coming about just through going to try out. I had played for the Boston Blades and had been in Boston for 4 years of college, 5th year, and I was kind of looking for a scenery change. So opportunity came up to go to Connecticut. Me and Anya banded together, and I was like, hey, do you want to go to Connecticut? She's like, I've never lived outside of the state of Massachusetts. She's born and raised in Mass. We went to college together. And I was like, let's go do something different. I'm always the type of person that is like an adventurous person, always wants to do new things, always likes to move. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and went to school all the way on the opposite coast, in the continent. So for me, I always picked up and moved. It wasn't really foreign to me. So I figured, what's our best chance in this situation to get an opportunity to play somewhere, thinking that a lot of the people from Boston were going to stay there, and get a ton of Olympians. And I'd always been in Boston, so I was like, why not move to Connecticut? So we went to free agency camp, or to, the first camp in Connecticut, and we were both offered roster positions, so it kind of just worked out. And to do it with someone that I had lived with and had such a good, friendship with, and it was just so easy to kind of have that familiarity. And if we were both going to go to a new foreign place, why not do it together? So that's how Connecticut came about. And then I was finishing up my master's degree, or I was halfway through my master's at that time, and kind of finishing it off online. And then at the end of the season in Connecticut, Chad Wiseman called me up and was like, do you have interest in coming to play for us? So he actually pursued me to come play for the Riveters. And at that time, there was a lot of rumblings. We had coaching turnovers. We had 3 or 4 different GMs go through our organization that year. Like, we had a ton go on in Connecticut, and there was a lot of players that of the core of us that were looking to disband. And actually, we're talking on the front end of, this probably isn't a healthy organization at the time to be at. Even for how successful of a season we had, a lot of players were looking to kind of jump ship. So when Chad Wiseman kind of preemptively reached out and pursued me to come play for the Riveters, it was kind of a situation that actually we thought would be a good setup. I had family there in New Jersey, and it was kind of a new adventure. And like we talk about the progression of women's pro hockey in the NWHL, kind of where it was going, it was kind of a new opportunity to go play for an organization that wanted me to be there, and that's kind of how that came about. And about reality set in when you're kind of picking up and moving. The salary got cut in year 2. Kind of reality set in that I'm Canadian. So there's a lot of if you could imagine a lot of difficulty with that just in general, and not to mention just the realities of life. I was doing a long distance relationship for about 2 years. My boyfriend was in college at BU still, so there was kind of just the natural livelihood of being in a relationship too, and long distance, and so a lot of things were just kind of going on. And at the end of the year with the Riveters, because the league was in a really sensitive place, it was understanding what kind of I had to do for the sake of myself, and being Canadian, being an immigrant in the league, and being under visa restrictions. So I took the summer to go work for a company in DC, Virginia, to had a connection there, and make some money in the off season and figure that out. And then didn't know if I was actually going to stay there for the remainder of the year and be done with hockey. Just for the nature of the league, a lot of players come in for about a year or 2 and then they take off and leave just because of the restrictions that I'm all talking about. So that very much set in for me. And then at that point, I realized I want to be back in Boston. I need to go back to be playing hockey. I want to be going back to playing hockey. And I had friends, family, boyfriend was there. It just made sense to go back to Boston.
Yeah, and you've been with the Pride, and I think it's easy for either anyone who has just kind of jumped on board, welcome to the NWHL this season, or anyone who maybe is just looking one season at a time, which again, to everything that you've said so far is very natural with where the NWHL is. But you have to remember, you were joining up a Boston team at the time that, was very different than what you would have remembered it as a competitor, right? So your first year with Connecticut, there were those epic battles, and then, the Riveters in season 2 as well. But you join up with a Boston team that is really looking to, and this is in the Olympic year, if I remember correctly, in season 3, you're really looking to, as a club, it reestablish itself. And you had the, advantage of with the season having already started before you signed up, being able to kind of see what that roster makeup was like. What were some of those conversations as far as from the team, what you could offer, but then also what were some of the things that you were excited about? Then maybe what were some of the questions or the challenges that you thought that could present?
Yeah, I was following along the league for the couple games. Again, I only missed 5 games in that season, so I could follow suit in that. There also was a new coach, new coaching staff, which was also changing at the time. There was a good core of players that had been there since a year prior, or even the year before that, in the inaugural year. So kind of knew the type of players. And then for the new players that were joining on out of college, or some that may have skipped the season before and then saw how well the league was doing and wanted to be a part of it, I knew a lot of players, and they all came from really awesome colleges and universities in the surrounding area. So that was all very promising when you individually, the individual group of players that you had in the locker room was great. A new coach that had a lot of playing experience playing in the NHL and the pro level over in Europe, in some really good leagues, and so knew that the wealth of knowledge that Thomas could bring to the team at the time was good. And then they also weren't off to a great start when I joined on, so that's kind of just the nature of, as you mentioned, the turnover and it being an Olympic year and just a different group, a different coaching staff, just totally different setup. That it's the trials and tribulations that any organization goes through. So it's something that I was aware of, but also knew that with the playing experience that I did have, and even the time that I was in, playing in the league, or at first may have not known where my hockey career was standing. I was, still on the ice and still in great shape. So I knew that if I could come in and step in, that I'd be able to add some benefit to that back end blue line.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to talk to you a little bit about culture. We're again now fast forward to pretty much the end of season 5 here. And I think Gillian Dempsey has been a player that in the last 2 seasons in particular has really caught the eye of, I think, the NWHL as a whole. But again, you're coming into, as you just mentioned, with a new coach for the Boston Pride. It's a new team. And I think that's probably, if I had to guess, when Dempsey really was kind of looked to and had to step up as a leader. But I'm curious, you'd played against her for 2 seasons, but when you stepped onto that roster and you were able to play alongside Gillian Dempsey in the NWHL, because we're talking about NW, but what was that experience like to be able to see her step into a new role that arguably she might not have had in quite a while in her hockey career?
Yeah, it was awesome joining on, with Gillian in particular, just her being a player that had been there since day one, and knowing her previously just from playing against her in the college level. So she, like any player, when given an opportunity, any good player, I should say, or every player when they get to this level, has had success in their hockey career at some point in their career. And so for her, as talented of a hockey player she is, and how much success she had as a college player, and even in year 1 and year 2, when given an opportunity to step up and fill a role, she just as anyone else is capable of doing that. But when you see someone like her step up, it's I'm personally not surprised about it, just knowing playing against her and just knowing her so tired of being able to play with her. But
yeah, I mean, Dempsey is definitely one of those players. You mentioned that Demps was saying that she was happy that you were with her and not against her, which comes to my next question I've been asking the 5-timers. Now, you've played with a lot of the other 8 players that remain in the league. But if I did my math correctly, there's only 2 that you have not played on the same team with. And that would be, of course, Kareem Bowie, who played with the Boston Pride in season 1 and has now been with the Buttes, and Elena Orlando. You 2 swapped places essentially in season 2. So the question is, what are some of the things that stand out when you play against Kareem Bowie and Elena Orlando?
Yeah, well, I actually got to play with Bowie and with the Boston Blades. I know not in the league, but obviously prior to the NWHL. So obviously knew the assets of what she brought to the team. Playing against her, it sucks playing against her because she is offensively such a threat. So, she's big. She's got great size. She's got great speed. But she can also put in the puck in the net. So, you name all those three things, and you're like, well, if you got a forward that can do all of that, she's obviously a threat out on the ice. But she is, and this year even specifically, she brought on like a total aggressiveness to her game. Like a grit to her game that I actually haven't seen from her. So she was brutal to play against this year because, then you add in the aggressive play and being able to do all those things. Certainly someone not fun on the back end. You always got to keep an eye out on her, but always good competitive hockey with her. Orlando is someone who I think is very quiet defensively, which is a good thing. And what I mean by that is she doesn't make a lot of mistakes. She's not doing anything dazzling offensively, but defensively she's really sound. And when I got the opportunity to play, against her in the All-Star game, you could just see that like her stick positioning is unbelievable. And some of the defensive plays that she made when we played against them, this year, she's her stick positioning, like I said, sound defensively, is like a great, the definition of what you want to say is stay-at-home defenseman. But yeah, they're in themselves. They're obviously different players, but Orlando's going to shut things down defensively, and Bowie is, she's an offensive threat.
Man, I love what you said for both of them. I completely agree with you with Bowie and her grit. I think the only time I've seen it in a big way was during the, I guess it would have been 2017, 2018, the Isabel Cup final against Boston. I guess that was 2017. And I mean, she just was in a totally another atmosphere in that game, and I think you're absolutely right. From what I've seen, she really brought that this year, and then the same with Lando. I mean, I don't know, Freddie. It almost sounds like you are pretty good at analyzing hockey or something. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like the color analyst in me coming out.
That was great storytelling. I love it. That's all right. So some of the other questions we've been asking all of the five-timers is, you've seen a lot. You've alluded to some of the things that have happened in the league, and it's evidently clear that women's hockey took a hit this off season, and that has impacted the NWHL in a big way. But it's not the first time, and likely won't be the last, that the NWHL in particular is having to navigate some choppy waters. So with all of that said, what do you think is important for folks to understand about what it takes to commit to anything for 5 years, but specifically to commit to the National Women's Hockey League for the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's a commitment, but it's a commitment knowing that there's been a ton of growth within that time frame. You have to understand that, people maybe not knowing the I guess the state of women's hockey or women's pro hockey for that matter may not know a lot about it. And it's just important that what they have been able to do in terms of adjustments and growth and implementing different things this year, like a 50-50 revenue split and Twitch deal, and some of these things that have come within the past year or two, has shot up the growth of the league tremendously. And I think, it's so important to understand that it takes time in general. I mean, you look at the WNBA, and they're in 23 years now and are getting the CBA agreement that they've probably always wanted or have been hoping for in that time frame. You see the NWSL taking time. A lot of sports do take time, and just the nature of hockey, being even on the men's side, being far below the depth chart of some of the other men's professional leagues out there. It's just, it takes time. And so I think for the NWHL and for, women's pro hockey, and for players that have been in it, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be, it's a huge part to growing this in general, whether if you've been in it from day one or not. All the players that have been, that continue to do what they're doing, being a part of the league, outside of the league, whatever it may be, it's super important. And I think as women's hockey grows and develops to on the youth level and even national level and some of the other levels globally, it's so important to understand that there's a league that needs to keep going and giving people a place to play and players to be compensated, but there's also tremendous growth to be had. And while things continue to grow in the NWHL and now being in its 5th season, you just want it to continue to grow on top of that. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, absolutely. And then I've been asking everyone also think ahead. You kind of gave me a great transition there, thinking about what that growth will be like when you allow yourself to think. And we'll say in the next 5 years of what the potential for a league like the NWHL could be, or even, again, you mentioned the youth level. What do you want for the NWHL? What do you want for women's hockey in the next 5 years? And then where do you see yourself in that picture that you've painted?
Yeah, as you look to the future of the sport, I think that the biggest thing is, getting a TV rights deal. It would be massive for the league, and I think when something like that happens, when there's a broadcast TV rights broadcast deal, when that happens, I think that's going to be kind of the biggest pivotal point, and I think it's possible within that time frame. So you do talk about kind of that short-term 5-year mark. I think that's kind of the biggest turning point. Obviously, the first step for the league and for women's hockey has been this Twitch deal, for the streaming deal. It's helped the league tremendously. You look at the viewership just on a per game basis, and then you look at kind of the time that the contract has been in place for the Twitch deal to see whatever it's at. I think unique viewers of 8 million unique viewers in the time frame of the season. So I think the biggest thing of what I'd love to see happen is that TV rights deal happen within that 5-year mark. Obviously, you'd love for salary cap to go up. I would say as salary cap goes up, what would be awesome is more games, more teams, expansion of those markets. Whether it's expansion of maybe 1 or 2 markets within that 5-year time frame, something like that is very realistic. And then you're bringing the team numbers up to 6, 7 teams. Those are kind of the immediate things that I think about in that 5-year time. But obviously with that there has to come immediate things like continued sponsors and sponsors pushing more monetary value to their sponsorship deals, so that right away that 50-50 impact can come into place. So thinking realistically, if all that kind of stuff can happen within the 5 years, I'd say that's really putting the sport in an awesome spot 10 years later from when the NWHL started. So and then, sorry, your other part to that question was, where will I be?
Yeah.
That's a great question. No, I definitely I do have a passion and love for the communication side. On the broadcast side with color commentating. So if there was ever something to come up with, that would be great. Would be a cool kind of transition to make, just more on a analytical side to the game and be able to talk hockey. But I think if I could go into on the business side of it, I would, into a business role, whether it's a general manager, working on an operations side for a team or running a team, would definitely be something that I think my younger 10-year-old self would love when I played NHL. NHL like 97 or something back in the day, and I had the opportunity to be a general manager and pick my team and things like that. That's always been something that I've definitely wanted to do. So there's a couple avenues that I guess I could explore, but as this league continues to grow and I'm done playing, I want to play until you have to pull me off the ice, but when that time comes to kind of transition to the other side, there's definitely an interest on either the communications or the business side.
The multi-talented Kaleigh Fratkin, I can't wait to see it. Honestly, I'm ready for it. Let's do it. All of the things. Let's do all of the things. But before I let you go, I want to get your thoughts. Just we're in a unique position here. You usually train for a final. You know when it's going to be. You can kind of space out your mental preparedness, your physical, obviously, preparedness and practice and game planning, film, all of that stuff. But we're in a situation now where, it's like this limbo between what I just mentioned and kind of maybe like an off season or like the off season gearing down, preseason gearing up. So for you, how are you kind of taking this time, knowing that, fingers crossed, hopefully, knock on wood, there's still an Isabel Cup to play for.
Yeah, I've never been in a situation like this before, and I don't think anyone has. So, it's a trial and error, just trying to stay, as in shape as possible, given the circumstances that gyms are shut down, rinks are shut down. Kind of to make the best of it. So right now, while training indoors and making a very adaptive style of working out, just getting getting in a routine to understand that this is what it's going to be like for the next bit and kind of make the best of the circumstance. A lot of things I was thinking about yesterday. I was like, I got to get my stick out. I got to get like a golf ball out. I just got to start stick handling and doing some things. I'm about to be in Connecticut soon, so we have a whole basement and a whole like shooting area to go. So I'll probably have to go shoot some pucks and go back to some old school type things that you got to make the best of it in the situation. But the good thing about it is, we were in really, really good shape and on the ice a ton leading up to the semifinal game, and then it's really not that hard to get back into it after, given that hopefully this doesn't take months and months on end. So with that in mind, there's still a lot of things that you can do off the ice to keep at it and recover and do those types of things. And it's also it's good at this time too to just get some rest. I think mental rest is kind of a big thing too. So just getting prepared until the time where we can get back at it as a team and get those practices in to hopefully play a game. So doing what we can given the circumstances.
Yeah, well, I think you said it best. I don't think anyone's ever been in this position. Certainly not anyone that's still playing. And so it's navigating the waters. I think we all are. But hopefully we can stay in touch with folks like yourself and just keep everyone, keep the appetite going until you hit the ice.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think with our group this season, I don't think you won't hear anyone that isn't like we say as a team, hungry to get out there. So it's pretty much every other day we're in our group chat and someone's saying they're still hungry for the cup. So that's a good thing. But we are on day 2 or day 3 of this, so long way to go.
Well, again, just want to make sure that you and yours are staying safe, staying healthy, and we look forward to cheering you on as you head to the Cup. We might have to have some fun though at Founding Four Pod and see if we can get an over under on penalty minutes for you, Fratty.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's there's penalty minutes. I mean, we could go. Could be an over-under on a lot of things across the board.
I'm saying, I think that show has kind of followed you, but I don't know. I've been watching you lately. I think, spectacular block shots is the one I'd prefer to do an over-under on. I'm really liking that. I'm liking it.
Yeah, a lot of diving at the blue line, pucks in. I don't know. It's you gotta. It was always known as the utility player, so you gotta do what you can, I guess, for the group wherever they need you. If they need you to, get out there and take a penalty. If you be tough out there, you be tough. If you gotta put some points up, you put some points up. If you gotta dive, and you gotta do whatever. So I like to think myself as a utility player. I'm not offensive or defensive. I just kind of do everything. I like to think.
I love it. I was a UT myself when I played, not hockey, but just sports in general. So lots of respect for the utility. And then, of course, I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that game day drip, because now I know your closet's popping. So, but always a pleasure, Fratty. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Alrighty, thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Stay safe out there.
Thanks.
Alrighty.
All right, hockey fans, that will do it for the Original 8 this week. Next week, we have our 7th installment of the Original 8. So if you're keeping count, that means we've got 2 more episodes after this interview with Kaleigh Fratkin. Next week, we will head up to the Nutmeg State, hear from Fratty's Season 1 teammate, Jordan Brickner. Jordan unfortunately missed a good portion of Season 5 due to injury. However, I was able to get her on the phone and hear how she and her family are handling, again, us being in the midst of coronavirus and having to buckle down. So I was really excited to hear from Jordan. I hadn't seen her around the rink in a while. We had a great conversation, and then Jordan Brickner will segue perfectly into our final interview for the Original 8. That is with the one, the only, Madison Packer. Mad Pack is the first of the Original 8 to re-sign for Season 6 of the NWHL. I actually spoke to her the day the news of her re-signing was announced. She had some great insight there, and then we also get into Mad Pack over the years and how she has been able to evolve, not just as a hockey player, a lot of that having to do with an injury that she sustained and finally getting surgery for that, but also off of the ice, as a person, as somewhat of an advocate, and now a wife and soon-to-be mom. Cute! Oh my gosh. So excited for these interviews. As always, thanks for sticking with the Founding Four podcast. We have on our more traditional episodes, we have some folks that have recently re-signed you'll hear from on our next regular episode, and we'll go over all the re-signings. There's been a lot coming through, but that seems to bode well for what the future holds for the NWHL. Until next time, thank you for listening. Give us a follow at Founding Four Pod. If you're able, join our Patreon posse. It's tough times for everyone here, but I want to continue to offer this as some way for us as the hockey community to connect. So please make sure that you are liking, subscribing, sharing, rating, and reviewing the Founding Four podcast so we can share all of the WoHo love, feeling the love, so we can share all of the WoHo love. WoHo being women's hockey, just in case you didn't know. All right, until next time, folks, please be safe, be healthy, be smart, and we'll get through this together. Erica Ayala, out!